Hello, everyone. We are here for another Control Command video all about newsletters today. A newsletter is a great way to connect with your database, connect with your buyers, your sellers inside that database, and keep you top of mind while you are communicating to your people in different ways, phone calls, text messages. This is just one of the different pillars of the 36 touch, the 72 touch. You hear those numbers a lot. Don't concern yourself so much with the numbers, but concern yourself with delivering value. And we're going to go over today how we can utilize the tool inside of Command that helps us build out these emails. When you first get in there, it can seem a little overwhelming. And hopefully, after today, you're going to go in there and have a little bit more confidence to build out the newsletter that you want to send out to your people. And my name is Stephen Delisio. I'm the Market Center Tech Trainer at the Keller Williams Advantage office in Lakewood, Colorado, and the downtown Denver office in Denver, Colorado. And we are here today to go over one specific tool inside of Command, but there's a couple of things we need to set up before we even get into the tool. We need to talk a little bit about the newsletters in general and how you set yourself up. And to start, let's just talk about the agenda. We're going to go through planning that newsletter. We'll talk about how do you edit an existing newsletter, possibly one that you downloaded from your Market Center director of marketing. Maybe it's the newsletter template that I provided for all of you as well that you can download from the library. Maybe it's some other person's newsletter that's inside of Command that you want to adjust. So we'll go over that. Then we're going to get into creating your own. And we'll start from a completely blank slate so that you can see if you want to completely customize your newsletter and make each piece yourself, you can do that inside of Command. And I'm going to show you all the different tools to help you do so. And then we're going to wrap up the class today with some external tools that I personally use to write my newsletters that I think you'll find really helpful as well. And of course, if you have any questions about any of the things that we go over today, my agents inside my market center, if you're here watching in person or if you're here on YouTube, if you're an agent in one of my offices, you can always sit down with me for a 30-minute or a 60-minute one-on-one so that we can maybe do some of this stuff together. Newsletters really are going to be the most effective when you are continuously sending them out at a consistent frequency. So that might mean weekly, monthly, quarterly. You get to decide on how often and when you're sending them. But the first couple of times may be a bit of a hurdle if you're doing it on your own or just following along on this video. So make sure that if you're in one of my offices, schedule some time. I'd love to sit down with you so that we can do it together, maybe the first, the second time, so that you can get a little bit more comfortable with my support. And then you can go off and start making them on your own as you get a little bit more comfortable with these tools. Now, as we go through the class, you may have some questions, and I'm going to ask you to use the chat inside of Zoom for any questions that you might have. And I'll make sure to pause and answer some of those questions as I'm going through to make sure that we get those questions answered before the end of the class. And so let's get started with planning. The first thing you need to define when you are planning your newsletter is who is the audience this newsletter is for. And there are a couple of examples that you see up on the screen here now. Number one, audience that is kind of the starting place for a lot of agents is just your whole database. Making a newsletter that is going to have value for anyone who might read it inside of your database. And what you put into your newsletter is what you're going to decide on what your audience likes. Now, you may also create a newsletter specific for buyers in your database, specific to sellers in your database, or sellers I like to also refer to as homeowners inside the database. And then you see special interests. There may be a segment of your database that is really interested in maybe dog parks because they have a dog. And so you might include those special interests and just send that special version of the newsletter to that group of people inside your database. But it all starts with you deciding what audiences you want to write a letter, or excuse me, a newsletter for. And here, if you're new to writing newsletters, start simple. Don't try and create 3 different newsletters a month if you've never created a newsletter ever in the past. Start simple with your database or with maybe just the buyers in your database so you can really speak to that audience. And that's going to make creating your content much easier than if you're trying to create one piece of content that is valuable to all these different groups. And so start simple. You can grow as you get more comfortable with these tools, as you get more comfortable with finding content. Because I'll tell you, that's the hardest part of actually building a newsletter. You're going to find the tools the easy part. Command, the system that we use in there, once you do it a few times, it's pretty easy to use. The hard part is finding content that is valuable to these audiences. And so you want to have a game plan with that content as well. And I have a great slide here coming up next to help you with those topics. I have a series of different topics on the screen. This is a great place to take a screenshot for yourself. You can also just email me, and I'm happy to send you this presentation as well if you're watching on YouTube, or if you just want to get these slides for yourself. I'm happy to email this presentation out, but you can see all the different topics from local spotlights, personal connections. I definitely recommend always including a personal connection. This is a relationship business real estate, and it will help you stay in that emotional proximity to the people inside of your database when you're making content that has a personal connection to you, who is why you're the reason they're in the database, is because they like you, they know you. And so I really want to push the personal connection piece. I find that's a great way to personalize your newsletters. Even if you're using the newsletter from one of my market centers, that's a great place where you can edit that newsletter and add in your own personal connection. A lot of this other stuff we kind of mentioned at the beginning of the class in the chat. Home value and maintenance are great things to add in there for homeowners. One-offs like contests and giveaways you're running, maybe some neighborhood trivia, restaurant reviews. There's a lot of different directions that you can go. This by no means is a complete list of everything you could include. I see lots of different stuff be put inside newsletters. My biggest recommendation is just be consistent with it. Don't change it up every time. The same topics should be going out each month, each quarter, whatever your rotation is for your newsletter. Keep it consistent for the most part. Now, occasionally you might have some of those one offs to include. That's great, but include the personal connection every time. Have your local spotlights and events every time. That kind of consistency gives people the ability to kind of know what to expect in your emails, which will help with your open rates of people opening them up, clicking through in the buttons, and utilizing that content. And so take some notes down from here if you see anything that you really like. We're going to be focused more on the tool itself today and not as much on the topics to present. I'm going to leave the content up to you and just show you how you can get any content inside of the system. Now, we have a quick question in the chat. Peter asked, how many of these topics do you recommend for an effective newsletter? Great question, Peter. I would start off with a basis of 3. That is where I would begin. Start with 3 topics, which might be personal connection, market insights, and events. That's a great starting point for any newsletter. It may be some other combination of these, but I would say start with 3. And that's only because it does take a lot of effort to build that content out and have something valuable. Now, you might want to do more than 3 eventually, but I would say start with just 3 topics that you know you can be consistent with, that you're confident in your tools, your resources to get that content put together in a timely fashion so that you can make sure that newsletter goes out. One of the biggest mistakes I see is agents overdo it with their first or second newsletters, and by the 3rd month, they end up skipping it because they ran out of topics. They ran out of content to put into that 3rd newsletter, and they ran out of time to find that content. And so start simple. You can always expand or drop back a little bit. 3 seems to be like a really good number, and it also is the newsletter template that I've created for y'all has 3 sections in there for 3 different topics. And so great question. Keep the questions coming, y'all, as we move through the presentation today. Now, after you have your audiences defined, your content scheduled or planned, one of the other steps you'll want to do before sending your newsletter is to organize your database in a way that makes it really easy for you to know who you send what to. Now, if you're just sending everything to the whole database, this is a step that you can skip. But eventually, you might want to start segmenting your database, and we use tags to do so inside of command. And let me give you a quick example of what I mean. So let's jump over to my command screen here. And let's see, where is command at? Right up here. And let's go into my contacts and I'll show you what I mean. As I scroll down through some of my contacts here, you're going to see some of them are labeled with seller newsletter. And that the intention there is so I can just easily click on that one tag, because a little shortcut in command is if you click a tag, it filters that tag. So it only shows people who are assigned to that tag. So I'll click seller newsletter. And then now, let's see, we should only be seeing people who have the seller newsletter tag here. My tag trick is not working. We're going to exit this out and hit apply seller newsletter. There we go. So now only my seller newsletter people are in here, which makes it really easy to select all of them, go to actions, and then add them to the smart plan that includes that newsletter for those sellers. And so whether that's your sphere of influence, your sellers, your buyers, your has dogs tag, has kids tag, whatever the segment is, utilize your tags so that you can quickly pull that group up and bulk send that newsletter out. Really, really simple feature of command. Adding tags to people can be done in bulk by just selecting the ones that you would like to be included in that tag, coming up to this actions menu and clicking add tag. That is the easiest way to tag people in bulk. If you need to make a new tag, you're just going to type it in here as kids. And you can see that tag already exists in my system. And so I would just check it off. If I do need to create a new tag, let's say they have 3+ kids, I can just hit create tag, choose the color I'd like for that tag, and then hit create. And so tags are a really simple and easy way to help you organize your database. Now, the second piece on here says include questions on your event and giveaway forms. So when you're running an event, running a giveaway, and you're having people entering their name, email, phone number, I suggest adding in a question in that form that specifically asks about what information they might be interested in. And it can be the newsletter, it can be the buyer newsletter, it might be a career night. Here is an example from one of the forms that I use that is very simple. Would you be interested in any of the following? And they can check off the different pieces that they might be interested in. Home seller class, buyer class, investor. You can choose what gets listed in that exact list of different offerings that you have. But this is a great way for people to raise their hand and say, I want to receive this information. The monthly newsletter, this is how we get a lot of our people on the newsletter, is through our events and our giveaways and them raising their hand asking to receive the newsletter. So a great way to collect data when you're already doing something like an event or a giveaway, so that you can collect some data and be able to then follow up with that with either newsletters or whatever it is. You can see I have some different offerings that we have, and then that helps us know who to invite to the buyer class, who to invite to the investor class, and that might mean additional emails, maybe a phone call to just these people, so that it helps us manage our time as well. All right, that is the planning section. So in planning, define your audience, plan your content, organize your database. Those are the steps, step zeros. Before you even write your newsletter, I want you to think about those things before you even get into learning the tool. Have that documented, written down, tag those people so you're setting yourself up for success. Now, the next section is we're going to talk about editing an existing newsletter. And when I say edit, I mean to customize, personalize, and enhance the content within a newsletter that's already been created. And for my agents at Downtown and Advantage, your marketing directors make you a newsletter every month. That is awesome. It includes so many of those topics that you saw on the screen earlier. They're a great newsletter. The only part that they can't do is they can't personalize it to you. So you might want to take what we're going to learn now so that you can add that personal connection into the newsletter. And so let's jump back into command, find these newsletters of where you'll find them in general, and then we'll customize that newsletter together. And so if I jump back to command, the way you're going to find the Market Center newsletters, my newsletter, is all inside the Smart Plan library. So over to the left side of the screen, I'm going to click on Smart Plans. When this page loads up, I'm going to come up to the top of the screen and click on the library. And there's a few ways to search the library. We can search by the Smart Plan name itself, but we can also click this drop down and search through the author names or the description in the Smart Plan. Now, for a lot of these, you're going to be just fine searching for the Smart Plan name. And if you are in one of my market centers, all you have to do is type in MC and your market center number, 273 for downtown, 131 for the Advantage Market Center, and then just scroll down to the bottom here. And you're going to see every month the marketing director's holiday email. You'll see the newsletter as well. And you'll notice those ones are both by the marketing director at Downtown, Asia Juarez. And this one here, you'll see the newsletter template 2025. You can just search for that text as well. If you type in MC273 or 131, this will pull up as well. And then you can download this newsletter that doesn't have any content in it. It just has the structure built out for you to give you a starting point. And we're going to go through how to create this as well. But these two newsletters, if you want them in your system, all you have to do is hit Add Smart Plan and download. You can do the same thing over here, MC273, add smart plan. And if you see this, like I'm seeing on my screen, where the download button is grayed out and we can't click on it, that just means you've already downloaded it. That's all. And so that means it's in my library already, which here's the trick, y'all, is when you download a smart plan that has a designed email inside of that smart plan, which any of these emails all have a designed email inside that smart plan. When you download it, it's going to make the copy of that design inside of your designs applet. So that's where we'll go to edit any of these designs. So we'll click on designs, and then now you'll see here's the Getting Techie with It newsletter template. I have in the February newsletter right in here. You saw that I already downloaded it. So it's downloaded it back at the end of January. And so we have these newsletters already inside here when we download them from the Smart Plan library. And so let's click on the February newsletter from the downtown office. And here we see that the information inside here is already built out for us. This is one of the advantages to being in the downtown or the Advantage Market Center is that these are created for you. All these links are live links going out to the pages for more details. We have information about events, real estate in the news. We have some more localized real estate news as well. And then the very simple thank you for subscribing, a great touch to end the newsletter. And then all of this stuff down here that looks like code, this pulls in from your marketing profile inside of Command. So this will be filled out as long as your marketing profile is filled out. And a great way to take a look at this before you send it out is you can come right up here to the top and you see that little eyeball. That eyeball's our preview button. When we click on that, we can see this email as if it was going out inside of an email. And as you scroll down the bottom, you can see now all of my information is now put down in here. Instead of all that code looking text, we have the information of my market center, which this is really important because this keeps you compliant in your marketing. And then we have all of my personal information as well, including my little team logo. And so easy way, you can also come up to the top here and select the phone. This middle one's a tablet view. I like looking at the phone view because so many people are going to read this on their phone. And I always like to check just to make sure that it looks the way that I expect when I do utilize or when I do send this out and they check it on their phone. And so this looks good. None of the links are going to work in here. So just be aware of that. I have a different way I'm going to show you how to check those as well before you send them out. And that's it. That's the newsletter. But maybe you want to add something to the newsletter. Maybe you want to change a piece of the newsletter. Now, that can be a little bit harder, but we'll get into that next. First, let's add in a personal connection. And a personal connection the way that I do my own newsletters, y'all, is I just do text. I don't do anything. I might add a picture of maybe my dog or my son or something a little bit more personal, but I'm usually just going to put in text. And so for this case, we're just going to add in that text by clicking on the text widget. You can see over to the right side of the screen, we have a few layout widgets, and then we have a few content widgets to utilize. And most of these are pretty simple to use. Uh, when I'm editing, I'm just going to usually be focused on these top three: text, image, or button. But you can see we have listing block, event block, videos, and the market snap block, which are just really simple widgets to utilize that make it a little bit easier. And we'll get into those a little bit later. But let's add in this text widget. And so what I'm going to do is just click on the text and drag it over to where I want it to be. And the first lesson you all need to learn in this tool is you see that green bar, that it jumps around while I am trying to place this text box. And wherever that green bar lands, that's where this widget is going to be put in. And so here I want to leave the welcome message at the top, and I'm going to add it in right below. Now you see the insert text here. And to edit it, all I need to do is just click, and then I have my editing pane over to the right side, where here inside the text widget, I can add in text, and we're just going to build out some text here so it's a little bit longer and you guys all can see what it looks like. Adds in my text, I might come in here and put in a merge tag. That's one of the cool features we have in here, which a merge tag brings in information based on the contact that we're sending it to. So I might want to say hello and then their contact first name. So I'm going to come right up here to the right side where we have, again, this bar, star, some words, and then a star and another bar. And we have all these different merge tags that you can automatically bring in. Now, all this stuff at the top, this is just the same stuff coming from your marketing profile. But as you get to the bottom, you see we have contact information we can put in here. And so contact first name is going to go in. I'm going to say hello, contact first name, and then I'll put a comma, and then I have all of my text here. We can also adjust our placement of the text, if it's right oriented, centered, left oriented, or the main center here. We have some other additional tabbing over. We have button, or excuse me, not buttons, button, no, bullets. That's what I'm trying to say, y'all. We have bullet points and numbered lists. You can use those. We can also hyperlink text in here. So if I want one of these pieces of text to hyperlink out to a website, we can easily do that and change our text. We can come in here and change the color of our text. If we just click on the little A right up here, we can choose the different color of text. If I want to highlight something, I can do so with the color of the text. I can bold, I can italicize, I can underline. So lots of different options and tools to be able to create the text that you want to see in here. And the last element is you have a few different font options as well that you can see in here. Just make sure to highlight the text that you want to change the font for, whether it's all of it. We can change that all to Georgia or to Times New Roman. I can also do the same thing with changing the font size of the text here as well. And so very simple to add in text. This tool is one of the simpler tools. And then you have a little bit of styling options down at the bottom. Styling meaning kind of what does it look like in the newsletter? And the first one that I will usually play around with is the width. And I'll just let you all kind of see what happens if I put in, instead of 100%, I put 50%. You see over in the preview that it squeezes the columns so that it's a little bit more narrow. If I put in 10%, you'll see it really squeeze the column, but it all resets the text spacing so that it fits inside of that styling width. So let's put it back to 100. And then the container padding is telling you how much space is above or below this element. So let's increase this to 100 so you can see the difference there. And you see it just adds in 100 pixels above my hello. And same thing, if I change the bottom to 100, it adds it to the bottom. And then you can do right and left as well, where if we do 100 there, it just moves it 100 pixels in from the right or from the left. And so that can be helpful just when you're trying to organize your when you're trying to organize and kind of set up the way you want it to look. That will help you. You can also add in borders, which is very simple. It's just a border around that element. It's kind of hard to see if you leave it at a 1 pixel width. So let's change that to 5. So y'all can see that now it puts that border around the text if I want it. I generally don't do borders personally. Um, there's an occasion that sometimes I might, if I want to highlight a certain block of text or something like that, I might put a border around it, but generally I am keeping it pretty simple when it comes to the styling of my text. Now, from there, we may want to add in a picture, and it's no different for a picture. If we want to put in maybe a picture of my dog or something, I'm just going to grab the image widget and bring it right in. I'm going to be really careful with where that green bar is. I want it above the section divider, that black line you see. And when I drop in my image, then I'm going to be given any previous images that I've used before. So if yours is blank when you come in here, don't worry. That's how it should look. You're just going to come up to the top here and hit add images. And when you click on that tab, that's when you're going to be able to click in and search through your device to bring in a photo there. Bring in the picture of your dog, the picture of your listing, whatever it is that you're trying to bring in. It just needs to be saved to the device you're on. And while we're here, you can also pull in images from a listing. So if you come in and search for a listing, and let's just search for my house here, and then we can just click on that, choose one of the listing images and hit save, and then boom, it pops it right in. And then we have similar styling options as well for the images. We can shrink that width again if we want a little bit smaller picture. We can add the container padding, we can push it to the right, to the left, or in the center, and then we have border options as well. And the last cool piece that I kind of skipped over is this link too. So if you want the picture to be a hyperlink, where if somebody taps on it when they receive the email, it shoots them over to a website, like maybe the website where this home is listed, I can click on link to and go down to web address and put in any link that I want here that will then send them over to that link if they click on that picture. Not really in this context of having my personal connection. I usually wouldn't link anything here, but in other cases, it works all the same for these other elements if you want to link a picture. And we'll again go through that a little bit later as well. Now, maybe you want to add a little bit more of a design flair here. So let me show you how I might utilize some of these layout options to not have them stacked on top of each other. So maybe I want 2 columns instead of one. So I can bring in that 2 column section, and then I'm just going to click and drag my elements right into those places. Let's see if the picture wants to go first. Perfect. And then we can bring in our text. Sometimes it gives me a little bit of a pain, so I'll usually just copy it and then drag in that copy right in there. And then I can delete that duplicate there. Now you see in here, it's going to scale this based on the text size. So if I do something like a 2 column layout like this, I'm going to make sure my text is adjusted correctly so that it looks good. Because right now, I'm not a big fan of seeing a little picture in a long block of text like that. And so you'll want to adjust to make that look a little bit better, to make it look the way that you want it to look. But that's just an example of using one of the layout options. And they all kind of work the same, just 3 columns instead of two, or a 3/7 column, which is 2 columns the same, but one is a little bit wider than the other one. And so really easy layout options to utilize. Now, the one thing I want to mention about these newsletters, you see, if I want to come in and edit this Love Unlocked, your guide to Valentine's Day in Denver, if I want to edit any of this text, I'm not going to be able to because you can see that our marketing directors, they build these into a picture. So it's not editable text here. This is not a part in our newsletters that you can edit. This is going to be the way it is. If you don't want this section in here, you can delete anything that you want. Deleting any of these is as simple as clicking on the element you want to delete and then clicking on the trash can right next to it. And also some helpful controls up here. If you do something you didn't mean to, hit the undo button, and there it is, right back where it belongs. So very handy for that undo button as you are learning this system. And so great tools in there. The last piece I might mention in these that you may want to do is you might want to add in some type of connection into your social media, and maybe it's Facebook. And I think it's easiest if you want to add in something from Facebook or something that they can click on. I'll add in a picture, choose my Facebook icon and save it, but I definitely don't want it that big. Let's make it more like 10%. And then I'll come in here, go to web address and link it to my Facebook page, https://facebook.com/Licio. Simple as that. Now, once you are here and you're happy with what your newsletter looks like, you may want to see what this looks like actually inside of your inbox. And to do that, there is a great tool right at the top of the screen that first you see, it's called Options. And when we click on Options, we get three different options to choose from. Preview, which will give us the same preview as clicking on the eyeball. We can click Send Test Email, which this is my favorite way to test my emails because I actually just get the email in my inbox. So when I click Send Test Email, it's only going to send to your KW email. So make sure that you have that accessible for yourself. And then you just hit Send Test Email. And then you can see this is a different test email. Let me see if I can get into that one real quick. Let's jump back to my inbox. Oh, not in here quite yet. There it is. And there's my test email where I can see it inside the inbox. I will usually check this on my phone as well, y'all, so that I can see what it looks like in a phone when it is live in an inbox. This is where I'll check any of my links, clicking on that link, making sure it's going where I expect it to go. Down here, let's click on my Facebook link, see if I remembered my Facebook URL. Nope, that is not me. So I'd have to go in and change. This is why we check them, y'all. All right, back to designs. And I think we have a couple of questions in the chat. Let me pull that up before we move on. So I see Peter says, please say again how the downloaded newsletter template goes from your smart plan to your design tab. So great question, Peter. That's automatic. So when you download the smart plan, it automatically adds the copy of that designed email right into your design. So you don't have to do anything. It'll just show up after you download it. How do we see the preview? I can't find the eyeball. Let's see. So two ways for the preview. The eyeball is right up here at the top of the screen when you are editing the email. So when we're in the editor, the eyeball's up here at the top, which just gives us a preview right inside here. And then the other way that you can do your preview is click on Options at the top right, and then go down to Preview. And you'll see it brings that same piece up. It's kind of cool. You can also add in a contact like my buddy Elmer Fudd. So now you see here, it says, hello, Elmer. It fills in that contact information so that you can make sure that that looks correct as well. It'll pull that information in from the contact. All right. We see my pics are too big for the marketing profile. Is there any way to make them smaller? Uh, Shannon, to answer your question there, you can, just not inside of Command. You'll have to use an external tool to do that. A lot of computers have a tool built into them. In your Mac, it's just your preview application that you can save that picture as a smaller version. Pretty simple. You may even ask for help from your marketing director to see if they can resize the photo for you as well to the recommended 300 by 300 pixel image size. You may be saying too big as in the file size is too big, where in that case, you're going to want to make sure that it's exported as a JPEG, where JPEGs will usually give you an option to save it as a smaller size. And again, that could be something that your marketing director helps you with as well, to just make sure that it's sized in a smaller format. All right. So that is editing these newsletters. Very simple, y'all. Before we jump out of here, let's close this out, and I'm going to close without saving here for that. But I do want to just show you the template that I built for y'all as well, that I showed you where to get it from. I first and foremost, I do not recommend you leave this bright pink and green. I made this ugly for a reason. to hopefully encourage you to change what it looks like here. But this newsletter is very simple. I've built it out in just a standardized, simple way. There's no real text in here. Here it opens up with that personal connection. It has a newsletter header. I really suggest you utilize a picture here to make your newsletters look really nice. And I use Canva to build these. And there's a ton of different templates in Canva. I would just say be consistent with your templates. Don't try and change it every time. You want to get yourself that branding consistency so it looks like your newsletter every time. Uh, the second section is a very simple section as well. It has a header, an image, text, and a button. And then you'll see the next section is a repetition of that same organization. And then there's the third section with that same organization as well. But let's talk about how you change the background of this, because I'm guessing bright fuchsia is not the color you want. And so what I'm going to first do is just make sure that I've clicked over here in this gray space so that I'm not selecting any of the content in here, because you can see when I click on the picture, it opens up this edit image field. Or if I click on the text, it gives us the edit text field. If I click on the button, same thing. So I just want to click off of all of that, and I can hit this back arrow as well. So to change the background color of the whole newsletter, we come right up here to the top right, and we click on background. And that's where we can change any of this. You can change your body width. I do not want you to really change the body width. 600 seems to be really good for most emails that you are sending to, whether it's Gmail, Hotmail, Outlook, whatever it is. 600 seems to work really well for the computer, for the phone, for tablets. But you can adjust your padding just like we talked about before. That's just the distance that you see on the side here. And then down at the bottom, you can add an image. Just be careful with adding an image. It can get really distorted if you pick something that's not sized right. So for instance, if I choose my logo here for Control Command and hit replace, it looks like it's okay, but you can see it's just really grabbing a side of this and trying to put it all in there, which is probably not what you want it to look like. So if you are going to use an image behind there, I suggest making sure to have an image that is size 600 by 1,000 at least, depending on the length of your newsletter. That second figure of 1,000 would go up if it needs to be, if it's a longer newsletter with more sections. But 600 by 1,000 should work for something this size. But the easy route to go is just choose a color, and you can click on the color here and choose whatever color you like. You can click around into this field. You can also click down here at the bottom if you want, if you have a specific hex color that you want to use from like your branding or something like that, and you want the exact color instead of searching around in here. I also am a big fan of using the eyedropper. So here is this little tool right here is the eyedropper. So say I want my newsletter background to be this same exact green color. I'm just going to click on the eyedropper, and you can see I get this little magnifying glass that pulls in the color of whatever I'm hovering over. And when I click, then it sets that color to be the same. So really easy. And then the last tip I'll give you, if white is always the top left corner, black is always the bottom left corner. So if you just need those solid black or white, that's how you find them really easily there, is just those bottom corners will get you to the black or the white. And so we're just going to set this one back to white for the background. Now you might have noticed as I scrolled down, I had the background set in this last section as blue. And so if I want to change the background of a section, I want y'all to be really careful here, and you might need to kind of lean in to see this. You'll notice all of these different guidelines that I'm hovering over and highlighting, and these are what are going to help you organize your newsletter. Because you can see that there's a larger box that goes around all of the elements. Then there's a smaller box that goes over some of the elements. And then there's the box that goes over the element itself. So when I'm just around that box that has just those smaller elements, I can come in and I can change that background color. Let me get back to my blocks. And when I click on there, you can see that's the only option I get for editing something that's not a picture, text, or a button. When I click on that specific little border right outside, I can change my background color for that specific section. So it doesn't change the whole newsletter. It just changes that one section, which is great to highlight things. That could be something that you continuously do for highlighting listings or testimonials or something you want to stand out a little bit more on your newsletter. And if not, you can always just come back in and bring it back to the same color as the full background. So that is the template that I have for you. You can see I like to end with like a little message down here. You might want to have some additional buttons down here that might say like follow me on Facebook or follow me on Instagram, something social media oriented, or maybe it's your app link or whatever you want to link out in your email. Buttons are a great way to do so. And editing a button is very simple. We click on the button and let's put on here, follow me on Instagram. It will resize the button for you. And then you just need to select where that button will go. And again, we'll just put that in here, https:// instagram.com/Delicio. We can change the color of those buttons really easily. Same options with the background colors as we have here. We can change the text color as well. So maybe we want to make that a light blue. Trying to make this really ugly, y'all. Let's go with that. Ooh, terrible. Do not use that color combination. We have font choices, font size, font family. We have the container padding as well. We have the borders, all those same options. They all work the same, y'all. So if I add a border to this, you can see it just adds in that border around that single button by itself. Maybe I want to round the corners. So I'll increase the border radius from 0 to maybe 25. And then now you see that the button now has a rounded corners instead of having those square corners like the original here. So there are so many ways for you to customize this the way that you want it to look. And my suggestion here is start with a template like this and get it to the point where you really like the look of it without any content in it, not worrying about what's going to go here or here in the picture. Don't worry about that stuff yet. Make sure the buttons, the colors, all of those things are ready to go because you can just create a template from this one and then copy it every month. So then that all you have to worry about is building out the content, putting in the text, adding in the pictures, relinking the buttons to where they need to go. You don't have to go and play with all the styling options if you have them all set up front. And so that is it for editing an existing newsletter. Are there any questions about finding those newsletters, editing them, if there's something we can or can't do within there? What questions do we have? Peter asks, your agent name and contact info populates at the bottom right automatically. That is correct. They will populate through those merge tags, is what they're called in the system. They will pull in from your marketing profile, which you will find buried in your settings. And we'll just go to it real quick for the video. So you'll click on settings, go to connect settings and the marketing profile. This is where it's pulling all of that information from. And so if you make any changes here, make sure to hit the save button before you leave this page. Otherwise, nothing will change. All right. Any other questions? All right. So let's move on to the next step of for my people who want to start from scratch. Right, Stephen, I don't like your newsletter template. I want to create my own. Well, perfect. We can do that too. So let's jump back and we're going to start completely with a blank. And I'm going to show y'all how to make a quick template. You're going to see a lot of repetition here. A lot of this stuff looks the same, but it is very simple to build out a template on your own. But here, instead of clicking on one of our already made templates, we'll come up here to create design. We'll choose email right over here to the left and next. We do have a couple of templates that are already built in here. None of these are newsletter templates, but there are some really cool ones in here. I love the open house template. I love the just sold, all really simple and easy to edit. And everything you're learning in this class applies to all of these as well. All of these templates have the ability to make any of those edits, changes, to link buttons, to add in pieces, to delete pieces. all of it is in there already. And so these are really useful if you're looking for something outside of a newsletter. These are great places to start. And so you can see there's work with me seller and buyer, and there's multiple of those: conversion one, conversion two, conversion three. So really cool, powerful stuff in here to build into some smart plans for you. So when your buyer comes in, your seller comes in, you can just drop them onto these smart plans that then send out these emails. They do require some editing. So please do not just drop them in and let them fly. Make sure to edit them, make sure they have the information in there that you want in there. So very simple, but here, since we're starting from blank, we'll come right up to the top right again and hit create new template. And the first thing I'll do with any template always is give it a name. So let's make this class example, CTRL newsletter. All right. And now you see I have a blank slate. And the first thing that I always put into my newsletters first is I drop in my legal footer. Simple as that. I always want to make sure this is in here for compliance reasons, and I always put it in. Now, I like the legal header as well. Uh, some agents do include it, some don't. I always include it, and I just bring it right up to the top. And then now I have that Market Center logo, my name, and everything. We'll check the preview. Now we see all that stuff, and everything we build is going to go right in between those two widgets. And to build these out, like I said, it looks very similar, but here I always start with one of my layout options. So I'm going to start with the very simple one, the box, just the single one column. And then I'm going to bring in my header picture. So I'll bring this in. It opens up uh, my previous images, and you can see here's one of my older, or one of them. It's not older, I guess, but this is one that I use here. Bring that in, and then I'll come in. And if I'm building a template, you'll notice I'm not worrying about styles and stuff. That'll come next. I'm just building the structure. And so here, I want you to see the difference. Look real closely at how I'm changing the position of my image. From the green line gets a little bit shorter here, and then it gets longer because this is inside of that first column box. This is outside of that first column box, which can cause some confusion if you put it in the wrong place. It can cause some formatting issues. So just be careful here. I'm going to make sure it's in that first column so it all aligns there. I'm just going to pick one of my pictures here and hit save. Um, Let me just show you this real quick too. If I do put it in and I don't have a picture ready, like if you're just setting up the template size, you can just hit cancel and it'll leave that gray image in there. So simple to just keep building. Next, I want to add some text below. So I'll do the same thing, making sure that I'm within that column box, drop in my text, there it is. And then I'll add in a button as well. And it's the same thing, it's just click and drag, make sure it's that green line is dropping where I want it to. And there it is. There's a simple section. When I finish a section, I always like to end it with a divider, but here I don't want that in the one column. I want this on the full size so that the line extends all the way to the edges. And I always like to make mine a little bit thicker, and I usually do a black line that separates the content. And then we go through and we do it again. We bring in a one column, and I'm going to do that right below the section divider. And then let's make this one a little bit different. We're going to still bring in the header first, and we'll use this header this time. And then this time, let's maybe bring in the 3/7 column. And I wanted to show you some of the other widgets in here as well, since we're in here building. I hope by now you've kind of gotten the hang of text and image and button. But then we have these other four down here: listing block, event block, video, and snapshot. First, we'll talk about video because I never use this one, y'all. This one doesn't seem to be really worth my time. I do still put videos inside of my newsletters, but what I'll do is just bring in an image, and then let me see if I have one from the past. Here we go. I'll bring in an image that I've edited in Canva to just add that play button. And then I'm just going to link it to the video that I want that to go with. And so there's my YouTube link for this one. Then when they click on this, it just goes right to that video. Does somebody have a question? I hear a mic unmuted. Okay, perfect. Make sure we're good on questions. Excellent. All right. Now, I might want to separate these where I can put a little description in here. So I might add in my text box here and then start typing so that I can add in that detail. And you'll see my preview updates right along with where I'm at. And so very simple there. Uh, and remember that these different columns, they can do all kinds of cool stuff. I might go 3 columns here, drop it in. Oh, I got to be real careful there. And then maybe I want to put a button into each of those. And again, we're just worrying about the layout here. We're not editing or designing the style. We would do that later, but that's a great way to have 3 buttons across. If you have 3 different links you might want to share about this, you'll see them in my newsletter with schedule a 30-minute meeting, schedule a 60-minute meeting. You might have buyer consultation, seller consultation, investor consultation you might have. And so lots of different ways to organize this, y'all. Let's bring in the listing block right below all of these. So I'm going to make sure that I'm in the right place. And listing block is cool because it actually searches the MLS for you and will bring in sold listings. If you're in Colorado, at least you can get in sold listings. Not all MLSs will do that. But if I start typing in the home I'm looking for, all I need to do is just search for it and then select the image that I want on that listing. So we'll use the second one and hit select, and then it fills out the rest of the information for you. The one piece it doesn't fill out, y'all, is the link. So if you want this to link out to your web page or somewhere else, you still have to manually come in and add that web address. Your KW site is a great website to push a listing to, so that drives them over to your listing or to the listing that you have in here, because it could be someone else's, it could be yours. Very simple to add those in. Now, let's finish this up with maybe a divider again, and then we'll bring in our next section where we'll start with the 1 column. You'll notice I do that for every section. I always start with the 1 column so that they all end up in that one large column, because that makes it easier to delete, it makes it easier to duplicate, really just is kind of like a housekeeping item. So I keep everything separated and all the alignment is correct. Now let's pull in our event block. So this one is actually just an automatic picture, text box, text box, text box, and a button. There's nothing special about any of these that need to be an event. They're all editable. It just kind of builds those 4 different elements in there for you right out of the widget. So nothing too special here. You'll see all the same options for images, same options for text in each of these different places. It's just kind of designed already for your events and being able to promote those. So let me just delete that out of there. And then let's bring in the market snap. The market snaps are really cool because same thing, when I click on here to edit them, all I have to do is put in the zip code of the neighborhood that I'm looking for, and I will select the arts district, and then it brings in all that data for me automatically. So super cool way to add in, instead of neighborhood trends, we might put in here Aurora Arts District. Oh, let's spell that right. District. There we go. And then you see it retitles. You can adjust some of the look of this, but you cannot adjust any of the data. The data is all pulled in through the MLS, brings that information in for you for whatever neighborhood you select. So if I changed it to the Aurora Cultural Arts District, which is a different area in my neighborhood, a little bit to the east, but you can see that's all right there, adds it all in, but I do need to adjust my content title before I move on, because it won't do it itself. Cultural arts. All right, let's see. We've gone through all of these: event, listing, market snap, legal footer, button, images. All of that is the same there that we've talked about. You're going to repeat these same steps to build out whatever you are wanting to build out. And very simple. Again, like I said, I'm happy to sit down with you to talk about how to build these structures out, adding in videos, using any of these specific widgets. And then the last thing I want to show you is how once you have a newsletter that you're happy with, we'll hit save and close here to save that in there. But now that I have this template newsletter, I'm always going to leave this one by itself. I'm not going to edit this one at all. Once I have my styling and sections ready, what I'll do instead when I'm ready to write my March newsletter is I'll click these 3 dots and then click make a copy. Here I'm going to get the option to put it in my personal or team. If you're not on a team, it'll just make a copy. You won't get this option. But then now I have my copy of this newsletter, which again, I start at the same place. We're going to make this March GTWI newsletter. And then that's when I'm going to come in and change all of my different pieces. And every month, I'm just going to come in and make a copy of the template that I started with and then update the different sections for that current month strategy. Now, the last thing that I want to just quickly mention is how you can send these out, because you can send them out through a campaign where you're going to click on campaigns. You'll hit create campaign and choose email. We have to give it a name and a goal, and then you hit create campaign. Then you have some different options here that you'll have to fill out, like your list that you're sending it to. You'll write your subject, but then you just hit select design, choose the template that you want to use. It will give you a chance to edit it, but I always say edit before, then do this. And we'll just hit save and close. And then that's how you build it into a campaign. Now, the other way that you can send them out, and this is the way I normally do it, y'all, is I just create a very simple smart plan, one-step smart plan. We'll hit create. We'll call this March newsletter, create plan. And then here, all I'm going to do is just add in that single email. But here's the key step. You got to switch from simple to designs. Now I can select the design, find my March newsletter, save and close, add the step. Oh, I got to put a subject in here. So we'll just put subject for today and add the step, save the plan. And then now that you'll follow the same steps in your database to come into contacts, maybe pull your tag that you want to send your SOI or your database tag or your buyers tag, any of those like we talked about before, select all actions, add the smart plan, and then there's that smart plan listed right there at the top. Oh, did not mean to stop sharing my screen. We have a couple of questions in the chat before we wrap up here today. Let's get back on here and let's answer some questions. Can we add this to the newsletter that our marketing department creates? Yes, anything that you saw me go over today in the custom section or the blank template that we started with, you can add in any of those pieces into the already created ones, just like we went over at the beginning. Love it from Patty. Absolutely love getting the feedback inside of the chat, letting me know that y'all are learning something. The last thing that I would like to let you know is a couple of external tools. So I use Canva, like I mentioned, for the headers, the thumbnails, images. I'm always building them in Canva and then bringing them in. Command also has some great images and templates that you can use. I just find Canva has a lot more variety, so I prefer to use Canva. ChatGPT is also a huge, huge helper for building out my text content inside of my newsletters. I'm always using ChatGPT to build out those texts. There's lots of different ways to use it. Look forward to an AI class coming later this year that I'll be teaching and going into way more detail about how I use ChatGPT and other AI tools. Also, lean on your board and MLS statistics to help you with those market sections, the local markets. Our boards and MLS have great already built content that you can just push right in that are already images. They're already made for you. And then last is the newsletter playbook, which is a playbook you can get from KW Command. And you get that inside of Connect up here. And you just type in the newsletter template, or excuse me, newsletter playbook into Connect. When you come in, you'll hit Connect, just search for it right up here. And then the newsletter template, or excuse me, playbook is a great resource, number one, for examples. You can see all the different examples that are built in here, but it also goes through some of the structure that I was kind of mentioning before, determining who is going to get it, design and plan, optimize your results. That's a little bit further beyond this class, these last three steps, but steps 1 and 2 is where most of us are at, where we need to define our audience. How will your newsletter be delivered? We talked all about email. This is also considering direct mail newsletters as well, and how often the newsletter will be delivered. So great information in here for my agents looking for a little bit more guidance on building out a newsletter. This is excellent information inside here. And that is all I had for y'all today. We have maybe one more question. Yep. All right. Need to do some implements. And so we went over planning, how to edit existing newsletters, creating your own from scratch, and some external tools to help you build out these newsletters. If y'all need anything else from me, I'm always here to help. If you could take one moment, pull out your phone, scan the QR code on the screen, and give me a quick review of today's class. I love getting the feedback. I have a big goal on getting a lot of testimonials this year. So please take just a moment now to fill out the questionnaire on there. It won't take you more than 30 seconds, I promise. There's only 4 questions, 4 or 5 questions, but you can leave your name blank. They can be anonymous. Fine with that. You don't need to leave me a video. I would love it if you did, if you were open to leaving me a video, but just take a moment, scan the code, and give me a little bit of feedback on this class. Thank you all for being here today. If there's anything that I can do for you, don't hesitate to send me an email at steven.delicio@kw.com. I hope to hear from you all soon.